All right.
All right, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for your patience. We've been dealing with some Zoom tech challenges here, but Callie, as usual, worked them out perfectly. My name is Bradley Clem. I'm the director of the Office of Sustainability here at Westchester University, and we have been very glad to sponsor this Spring 2025 Sustainability Research and Practice Seminar with our colleagues from the Office for Research and Sponsored Programs and from the Sustainability Council Scholarly and Creative Activities Committee. And we're grateful that those of you who are here in person have joined us and that those of you tuning in via Zoom have joined us. Please remember we have 2 more Wednesdays this semester, another couple of great presentations after this one, which follows on 9 previous presentations, which have really expanded our understanding of how sustainability is part of scholarship and operations at Westchester University. So, as I said, we're grateful to you for joining us, and with that, I'm not going to say any more and pass the forum to Nick Ventrola from Aramark.
Thank you very much, Brad.
Thank you. Everybody can hear me on Zoom in the room. I'm loud enough, I know. Sorry for everybody in the room. Well, like Brad said, my name is Nick Ventrola. I'm the resident district manager for WCU Dining and New Street Catering. So thank you for the order. We'll make sure that we take that feedback, that hot water back to the powers today. Make some changes in that. But my colleague Emily Zito, who is new to Aramark, 8 weeks in, I think, yes. 8 officially. Emily is our registered dietitian on campus, and she's also our sustainability manager. But short of throwing her to this, because I'm obviously I can speak to a lot of the initiatives that we've been doing prior to her being on board. I figured I'd give her the ability to sit in audience for this, but she'll be presenting moving forward, and obviously any follow-ups she'll be included on for sure. So sustainability and campus dining, a little backstory about myself. When I started my career, I was actually with Sodexo at Temple University, right about the same time that they started their Department of Sustainability back in about 2008. So I was one of the first board members on that as the dining services chairperson for about 2 or 3 years. And then when I came back, I left the industry and came back with Aramark and put on the business at Temple University. I had a lot of contacts there. So pre-pandemic, when we were actually moving the needle with the Department of Sustainability there, we made some really good strides in terms of how we can make our operations better for the environment as a whole in North Philadelphia. So obviously the pandemic has taken a lot of that out of it, but that's a little bit about me and myself in terms of my sustainability background. So what we've got currently in terms of sustainable efforts in the dining hall, we're going to go through in a second, because a lot of what we can do and move the needle as a whole is through the dining hall and the commons at the SECC. Year over year, we've increased our plant-based options. We incorporated a vegan station with a rotating menu. That is 7 days a week, 2 meal periods, basically lunch and dinner, changing throughout. And that's on a 4-week cycle that we usually have all of our menus based on, and that's something that helps our production and our procurement initiatives, so that we can make sure that we can get the products in. Our vendors are able to work with our, the cycles that we have, so that we can make sure that we're not out of stock as much as possible. We also have multiple dairy alternatives in the dining hall. What isn't on here, and we've had a little bit of an issue with stocking it in bulk, is oat milk, but we do have silk soy milk offered, vanilla, I believe, and then the Uproot. Uproot is the name of the brand that we use, which is a locally based plant-based dairy alternative, which is a tongue twister for sure. But they have a chocolate pea milk that we get from them, which is It's interesting. I'd give you all a I would venture to have everybody try it. It has a little bit of a funny mouthfeel for chocolate milk, but alternative to regular dairy. Also, one of our initiatives as a company, which we're putting in all of our accounts, is to meet the 1-to-1 ratio of fresh vegetables to frozen and canned. And we're pretty much on point with that. Our salad bar helps because we have the best salad bar in Chester County as per public safety, as they eat with us every day. So that really helps with being able to have those fresh options on a daily basis so that it can alleviate how much frozen and canned we have. Obviously, lagoons usually come from the can, so that's something we can't really solve for in the capacity we have, but trying to offset that with fresh spinach. Broccoli when it's available, we're not having any supply chain issues with it, carrots, all that kind of stuff. Another big initiative we've had over the last couple of years, Our as a corporation has partnered with the World Resources Institute to really drive a cool foods program home. Currently, I think Emily told me to this, we're about 20 to 25% of our current menu is cool foods. It's on here. About 20% of the menu, yes, it says stay at the bottom. Look at that, I'm jumping ahead of myself already. Sorry, I'm coming down somewhere, so I'm trying to stay hydrated. But what Cool Foods does is it's incorporating more lower emissions food items into our menu options. Obviously beef and lamb, as you can see on the slide here, are heavy in terms of their emissions to the environment and in terms of their impact for it. So we're trying to incorporate more of the lower items into our everyday menus. And my goal for fall is to push it above 30% at least, and in the coming years get it to as close to 50% as we possibly can. It is difficult in this environment. This comes down to an education standpoint, so I'm glad that I was introduced to you two, because I think that's something that maybe we can partner to as an initiative to be able to drive this home to our students that come into the dining hall on a regular basis. Because we still go through, I've never been in an account that goes through this many beef burgers. We have to put it on the menu as often because that's what the students want to see. So we offset that by having some turkey and chicken options, handheld options in the grill, but we do go through a massive amount of beef. And there's some training opportunities we have from a staffing standpoint over the summer that we want to get to. You know, Emily and I have talked about this, just how we merchandise proteins for instance, on a serve option. So our chef's bowl station, for instance, if we merchandise tofu, chicken, and beans ahead of the beef, your eyes as a consumer will see that first and hopefully gravitate that, so we can bring our numbers down on the beef side. It's an ongoing coaching as the stations are getting set up. Sometimes our employees will just put stuff in, so that's going to be something we're going to try and focus on over the summer. So we hit the ground running in the fall. Some other initiatives that we have. Last year, actually, we started this, and it's every Friday in the dining hall. We do Sustainable Fish Friday. We get that. We get the fish proteins. There's a list at the Monterey Bay Aquarium Project that we partnered with as a line of business to be able to help with some of the, offset some of the unsustainable fishing practices. We're utilizing a lot of the fish that are on that recommendation as that changes throughout the year to offer some elevated dishes in the dining hall. I think a couple of the options we had on there, we did a tuna poke nachos, North Atlantic salmon sliders, and Cajun crab cakes, just as a couple of options that we've done. Students have really loved it. I will say that they still gravitate to chicken nuggets and mac and cheese more often than not in the dining hall because we have that on the menus as well. But this has been something to be able to help, especially from a sourcing standpoint, because there are a lot of unsustainable fishing methods that are globally, and this is one of the things that we think we can help with impactful. This program is also, the Mid-Atlantic region for, collegiate hospitality instituted this last year, and now all of the lines of business throughout the nation are receiving that on their menus as well, so pioneers, as I'd like to say, so. Sorry. We came back to our Weigh the Waste initiatives in the dining hall. This is something that we do to, again, from an educational standpoint, show students just how wasteful their choices can be in the dining hall sometimes. Not saying that they're bad people for doing it. Sometimes your eyes are just bigger than your stomach. You get more food. When that goes back to the dish return, a lot of that is obviously not going to be reused. So this is one of the things that we came back to in the fall. And then we're gonna have another one coming up. I think next week is the next. So obviously timely, of course. I didn't know if it was on Tuesday or Wednesday next week, but we're doing Weigh the Waste to see semester over semester if that resonates, if we see less numbers in terms of what was accumulated. And then throughout the last couple of years, and this is something that I need to do a better job for my program to tell our story about, is some of the client focused sustainability events that we do just on a week-to-week basis. It's already in tune and programmed in. This month is actually Cool Foods Month. So we're highlighting a bunch of menu options in the dining hall to draw attention to cool foods and the education pieces behind that. And I know next week, when you're tabling in the Zero Waste Summit downstairs, I believe, in the ballrooms, we're gonna start recruiting for our green team that we're trying to, so we have some interns that we can help with some of these events in the fall and spring next year. I'll pause there so I can take a breath. Any questions? No, I'm just going wild at this. Anything I can answer for you at this time?
I'm curious about the Weigh the Waste initiative and how you use that to educate students and employees at the university about food waste and its impacts and best ways to avoid it. How do you promote the event?
Really in the dining hall leading up to it, we have, you know, it's on our marketing calendar for the month. And, you know, day of, we'll call it out on social media so that they come and see the team. But it really, we stop them before they even get to the dining hall, the dish return. So students don't really have a choice to be able to participate or not. Well, they do. We don't hold the gun to their head and say, no, you gotta weigh it. Most of them will do it willingly. And it is eye-opening. I know when I've done it in past accounts, students are, you know, they get taken back by it. It's a real number. It's something that's quantifiable to see. So who knows if that student, like if it resonates with them to make that choice the next day and the next day and the next day, continue doing that. But little by little, even one student at a time, will hopefully be able to help us, because that's going to help us on the back end so we don't produce as much and throw as much out. That's the whole point. That ends up growing the costs that will make or break a program as a whole. So if we can make those tweaks little by little, again, to the Cool Foods point, education pieces about this, it's a lot cheaper for us to get more beans and some of those items, those protein items on the menus, as opposed to beef and lamb. And those beef and lamb items are the ones that are the highest impact to the environment in terms of emissions. Something to, it's not one person can educate, it's gotta be a team. So that's why I was happy to meet you both today, so we can partner at least. I don't know if you're gonna be back in the fall, we'll talk later, but yeah, moving forward, I think it's gonna help with that. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. I know you've done things like this in the past, but since I'm not typically in the dining hall, I haven't seen it and how the information is conveyed to students who are participating. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, when we did it, I don't remember what the number was, the pounds that we did the last time. But we called it out on social media, we did a raffle with it, if somebody could guess get closest to the amount, I think the person was within like 5 or 6 pounds of the total number we had, so they got.
I think the grand prize was an apple.
I think, yeah, it was an Apple product, I wasn't sure if it was fair or not. Yeah.
Student participation, like
Yeah.
you get the guest, you get a really like
Yeah.
that. And if I might may chime in as
Please.
well, another way that we go about minimizing the waste is our smaller portion sizes in the dining hall. As a dietitian, I have gotten a bit of negative feedback. This isn't enough food, I'm still hungry. Well, take a smaller portion size, eat it. If you're still hungry, go back and get a second one. So that's kind of how we're working on limiting our waste. And that will definitely be a talking point for me. It's going to be me and a couple of interns from this. So that'll definitely be a talking point for me. That's why we usually do smaller portion sizes.
And that's a good call, because we do get a lot of pushback when, especially the athletes come in, they want to get 4 or 5 helpings of whatever the product is. And it's like, well, we do this so that we can, minimize portion sizes. We're still within the nutritional needs for it, but have this come back. If a student really pushes back and really wants that, we'll serve them. But that's the recommendation if you're trying to do smaller portion sizes. So it eliminates how much waste is going into the back, which is what we're trying to avoid, the overproduction. So. So some retail and catering sustainability efforts. This is an ongoing thing, and just working with our national brand partners. But some of the things that we already do on campus, Eco Grounds downstairs, their whole platform in terms of that coffee concept is based off Eco Grounds. For eco is in the name of it. There's a lot of sustainability initiatives that they push for. One of the things that we do is the bags that our coffee grounds come in, we recycle them, send them back, and they just reuse them part of the cycle for distribution for them. Starbucks also has compostable materials throughout their platform, and you're running a licensed Starbucks, so it's the same product you're seeing as you go in there. I know that go into a corporate store. Some of the products that they have, they went to a lot of strawless lids, especially on their cold beverages. Difficult to drink a Frappuccino without a straw, but some of those things to be able to push away from the needs for straws in retail, we're looking into. Not listed on here, but we've fully pulled Chick-fil-A away from foam, because that was a sticking point, that the foam container that their drinks were being served in. Obviously not great. It's an eyesore. It's not good for the environment in terms of foam. So that was the last thing that we had that made us, I can fully say that we're officially off of foam across campus. Bento Sushi utilizes sustainable seafood as well. And then Freshens also uses compostable cups and bowls in their products as well, because that's all a to-go program. It's difficult with a retail concept to eliminate that single-use paper product, especially in a campus as big as Westchester, and how often students are taking stuff to go. So where we can make some of these tweaks, it's not huge, but little by little, we can move the needle as much as we can. And then on the catering side, I know that that's the one where we get a lot of negative press on the sustainability front, but we have made some positive strides. We have sustainable menus that we have going through. The seasonal plant-based menus that we have as an option. Just please reach out to New Street Catering and we can provide that. And I know that Jeannie Subak is working this month in terms of she's got a research grant to look at how much waste at catering events and how we can do that. So she has some student interns that were, they had to-go containers, and they had a list of a bunch of events that were going on in this building to be able to get an idea of how much waste we have. We do the best we can to advise the client on how much they need when they come to us for an order, just so there's not the overproduction. And I know there's a lot of sustainability efforts and, waste reduction efforts from a catering standpoint with it's like a WhatsApp I think it's the WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Google, yeah, it is WhatsApp, I thought it was WhatsApp, yeah, I wasn't sure what the app was that we were doing, but, so students that are in the area can see that there's food. We try the best we can to make sure that it's labeled so that there's no cross contamination or, allergy based issues, because I've seen that happen, other accounts with that. And food sourcing and purchasing, this is actually some really interesting data, and we're getting better from a reporting standpoint on our end. This is June 1, 2023 through May 31st, 2024, which is our client budget with the university. And this gives an idea from a sourcing standpoint on where our products are coming from. 29% of our spend is local, and that's including the stuff that we get from a Cisco. That some items like the example that was given to me, like if we order Frito-Lay from Cisco, maybe their headquarters might be local, but their production plant is in Utah. So we don't necessarily, this 29% is factoring that in. So we can look at how we can get better situated to the locality of that 150 miles. I'm still waiting on the data for it, but we are well within 150 miles for all of our vendors. Very little of it is coming from outside of that. Eagle Grounds is one, but that's FedEx from California, because that's where their organization is based out of. But primarily all of our local vendors are within that 150 miles when we're getting stuff. So our dairy, our bakery, produce is out of our vendor is out of Lancaster, and they're pulling from as many farms as they can seasonally as best they can. So really cool in terms of the reporting that we can get. It's getting much more granular with this, so we can actually see how we can help to make that difference from a sourcing standpoint. And then back to the emissions and the data related to cool foods. This is the Westchester University average student versus the North American diet. And you can see that beef and lamb are much bigger here than the normal average and what's being consumed by our students on campus. So we have some work ahead of us in terms of that education piece to be able to push that. And even from a dairy standpoint, making that pie chart a little bit closer to the North American diet if we could, because this will absolutely move the needle with the emission standpoint.
Do you think that college students as a focus of analysis would be different from the North American diet at any institution of higher education? Is it a different population that might in part be explaining the difference?
Good question. It's something to look into. Because I know that this report, I can ask some of my colleagues in terms of how their data looks. If there is, and even from a regionality standpoint, is it similar to what it is in the Midwest, or is the Midwest even more skewed because of their, the norms that might be going on in their diets, compared to the Pacific Northwest and the West Coast in general. So it's definitely something to look into. I thought it was interesting because as we're talking about the community here, how it lines up to the average North American diet, and the fact that we are
thinking that college students might kind of gravitate towards comfort foods that they were served at home, kind of like, you're away from home for the first time, and you want something kind of familiar, so you're going to eat what mom and dad were serving you to some degree.
Absolutely. I mean, that's where our comfort food station is one of our most popular stations in the dining hall, where you're going to get a meatloaf, you're going to get a mac and cheese, you're going to get a rotisserie chicken. Obviously, 1/3 of those is skewed towards that 52.62% emissions wise. But yeah, that's definitely. I mean, there's a lot of contributing factors to this data for sure. But yeah, all points to consider. But back to the original point about education, if we can get ahead of this and help with the messaging as a community, maybe we can make those tweaks to, positive impacts to how we are harming the environment or not harming the environment, I guess.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with Brad when he says that rather than looking at the average North American diet, we should maybe look at the average college diet kind of thing to see if we're skewed from other institutions.
For sure, I mean, again, this is just part of that report and it's in the infancy stage of this reporting, because we just partnered with this data analytics company, I think December of 2024. So we still have some, unknowns that we don't know for, and I don't know what is factored into the average North American diet, what makes that up, that's, all 50 states with everybody factored into that, or if the average North American diet of a college student, like, I just wanted to show how we line up to that. But more to follow up on, when we do this, in the coming months and years for sure. So future sustainability efforts that we have going on and showing off our reusable container. We do have a reusable container program in the dining hall. I'll say that there is room for improvement for sure with it, in terms of, data collection. Right now, students are more often than not reusing them the proper way. They're just coming in, buying a new container and not bringing it back to be able to save the funds. So we end up selling a lot more than we probably should be. And that's something that, through what we were talking about earlier with Tipingo, on the Grubhub platform, or any of the other reusable programs that are offered in the higher education environment, something to think about, to consider, in terms of the impacts that we can make moving forward. For us here, you saw the food emissions report. I mean, obviously digging into that and seeing how we can move the numbers in a positive format. Now that we can see it, we can benchmark better and see where we have the ability to make changes to where we're going. I mentioned that by fall, I want to be 30% compliant in terms of whole foods in the dining hall, and continue to drive that percentage up. And that's just the offerings comparatively. Increasing our local spend percentage. Again, the data is new. We have new reporting, so we have some insight as to where we can make changes, make tweaks. So this is all where we have benchmarks, and we can continue to drive change in that. Enhancing our green catering guide and menu. That's something that is an ongoing thing. As we have more cool food options that come in, we can incorporate that into the catering initiative. Monthly sustainability initiatives via newsletters to our key stakeholders. We do have, who knows, we have a newsletter, monthly newsletter.
I've seen it.
We do. It does go out. Stacy Halk, who couldn't be here, who's our client, she sends it out through the faculty and staff. I know through student affairs. I'm pretty sure that gets out. But we do have a sustainability corner in there. Increasing our sustainability events on campus. Now that I have Emily here to be able to guide that, we can track that and see how we can increase those offerings and those programming. Optimizing our reusable food container program. Like I mentioned, we have it. It can be better, and we're working towards making it better as much as we possibly can, as early as we can. Selling reusable bags. We do offer reusable bags. It's not a huge pushing point for students, but we do encourage students to bring their own bag when they go to our convenience stores. One of the big pushes I've been trying to push, especially in the dining hall, like we had such a bad habit coming out of the pandemic with single-use half and halves. I've moved away from that to bulk half and half and creamers in the dining hall where we can make those changes. Some students still, I mean, it's not an easy solve for sugar packets, because it's not an easy way and sanitary way to keep sugar in a dining hall setting like that. So that's one area where it's difficult to make a move on there. But where we can, we're making those bulk condiment changes throughout our campus locations just because it's less single use that's going into the waste stream. Obviously partnering here, that's why you've seen a lot more of me. I want to make this, you know, a moving forward, I want to make sure that we're good partners within the sustainability group. Hopefully I've had pretty good attendance myself. I know we have Emily to be able to take some of that pressure off of me to be here so that we can see where, you know, the university is making changes and how we can partner to enhance that relationship moving forward. And then long term, we dabbled with something from a production standpoint called Lean Path, and it's another tracking method that we have in terms of weighing pre and post consumer waste in our kitchens. I want to move back to Lean Path because they've enhanced and developed that platform a little bit better. But what it basically is where we have our weigh stations when there's food waste, like the melon rinds and everything that's getting cut as much as we can produce in-house, we try to. It's actually a camera system that takes a picture and does a lot of the data entry pieces through the program, so we don't have to rely on the frontline staff to be putting it into our tablets in our production standpoint. Utilizing our food waste management and manual food waste tracking, again, that's going back into that lean path so that it's less grunt work on the frontline associates, so it's easier to be able to capture that data. So it's more efficiencies with how they're getting that in. And looking at the food emission report that we can get year to year and seeing how we can make those numbers be positively impacted moving forward. And that is all I have. Questions?
We've got some time. Kelly, do you want to, if you want to stop sharing the screen, then our participants on
Let's
Zoom
see some
will be able
chat,
to
so,
see you better. Yeah. There are some questions in the chat,
There
so
are.
perhaps the people who post the questions would like to just unmute themselves and ask them. Ruth, would you like to start?
Mute? Yes.
Yeah.
You know, on that pie chart you showed with the 52% that was beef and lamb consumption, I believe, and
Sure.
one of your goals was to reduce that. What if you just did not offer lamb anymore at all? Because lamb is a very problematic item. It's not good for health. It's high on animal cruelty. And now you can see it is the largest contributor to the carbon emissions.
We don't offer a lot of lamb to begin with in our dining facility. It's just part of that grouping and how it looks. That being said, there are students that do want to see it on our menus. We try to incorporate it as little as possible because it is a high cost item for us to be able to serve. So the majority of that blue 52.62%, I'm looking at the number right now on my table, is primarily beef and beef products, more so than it is lamb. I do know that when we were looking at, because for the month of March during Ramadan, we were serving halal certified meats through True Balance because we had a control point, so that students that were observing Ramadan could still get food. Lamb did show up a little bit in that menu, but only as an alternative because it's difficult to see the same proteins cycling through. So we're just trying to throw some alternatives in there, but again, primarily it was poultry and beef, just because of the way that we're serving them in that capacity. Great point, though. I mean, lamb is a high cost item, so it's not as frequent in our dining hall, but we do have it occasionally in there, and then we do have asks for it in catering as well. So,
Okay, thank you.
no problem.
There's Sarah.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things, my question is about, you were talking about education with the food choices, and I was wondering whether the focus was mostly on like, you know, eat the plant-based diet, it's better for the environment, or whether there was an element of like, looking at the breakdown of like this meal of beans and lentils has this much protein and this much nutrient, so you can see that you're getting, the equivalent of your hamburger or whatever. Um, that was just one of the things I was thinking about.
From a messaging standpoint, I mean, I am not a subject matter expert. Emily would be that. And I know as we're getting this data, really over the last month is when we first started to see it. That is something to be able to talk to as we roll out some of our initiatives, especially in the fall when we have a full summer of planning to be able to get there. I think that's one of the things from a marketing standpoint that Emily and our marketing manager, Mary, can kind of collaborate to be able to push the envelope forward. I don't know if you want to elaborate more on that, Emily.
Yeah, I mean, it could definitely be a dual-sided approach. Whenever the students approach me, they usually come with really, really good questions and like they want to talk to me. So I can kind of approach it as like, not a double-edged sword, but I think that's the best analogy for it. Like, not only is it better for the environment, but it also has all these health benefits. Lentils are high in fiber and they're also, lower in carbon emissions. So that's definitely a way that I can approach it. Moving forward.
And then Cheryl had one in there. Yeah, I can see.
Hello. Thank you
Oh.
so much for this. I am so excited to see all of these initiatives. It's really great. So, yeah, I'm really excited for what's happening here. If you receive cranky feedback about catering, I would say probably about 80% of it comes from me. And so I want to take responsibility for that. But that's really the only way that faculty interact, right, with food services. So 2 items. I just went to look at the New Street Catering site, and this is like a factual one. You said that there's like a plant-based menu there?
Not loaded on cater tracks. That is something that we have separate, so you have to reach out. I know it's an extra step. Apologies for that. Cater tracks is one of those third-party vendors that we use to basically that procurement site is managed through another vendor. So it's wonky. It's not easy to deal with. It's not easy for our clients. I know it's not easy for myself and my team to be able to do. But if you do want to see those menus, we do have them available. You just have to reach, and I mentioned during the presentation, it's a matter of reaching out via email to Imani Johnson, who is the new catering director. There was some changeover in the last month in terms of Jess is no longer with us. She went to another area of Aramark. Jess Young, for those of you that know, was our catering director for 3 or 4 years now. Imani Johnson has taken over there. So if you reach out to New Street Catering at wcupa.edu, you can request that menu. It's not as easy as a flip of the switch to be able to put it on the cater tracks. It's one of the things we're trying to work through. So apologies for that, but Imani and her team can send it over to you if you want to see it.
Yeah, I mean, but it would be great if that would be on the landing page, like a pretty picture, and then you click through there and it says, we've got all this available. Please reach out to us via email, so that it's immediately available and it puts it on people's, the front burners to say, oh, we can do plant-based.
Right.
My more complicated question perhaps is about the reusable like silverware and dining ware. Because when I first started doing catering, I think it was like $3.99 per person to get the reusable, right, china and things like that. And now it's almost $10 per person. So in some cases, it almost doubles one's catering, catering costs. And so what I would like to see, like ultimately, is either that cost being built in, right, or those externalized costs of the disposables, right? What it's costing in terms of landfill, what it's costing in terms of production and emissions. What I'd like to see is that kind of calculated into that kind of baseline price for the disposables. But I know that's complex. You're dealing with transportation, you're dealing with, right, labor to get those dishes washed and things like that. It just has skyrocketed, and we'd like to see it flipped.
I hear you on that. A lot of that stuff is just because most of that is rentals that we get in from another vendor of ours. So they handle a lot of that, and that's probably why the cost is going in. We can look at what the costs are associated with I guess lower end Chinaware, for instance, for that. I'd have to do some more digging on that though before I commit to an answer on here for sure. But it's a very solid point. I mean, there is, and I'm glad you mentioned it, there is the transportation cost and there's other associated costs that go into how we can keep that overall price down for the end user. And there's not an easy answer to that. There's a lot of extenuating circumstances that go into this versus that and that versus this and that kind of thing. So we can only do what we can to continue to move forward and do the best we can for it. But I'll look into this and make sure that since Imani is new, this is something that she can help to put on her plate to see if we can tackle and make better.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Hello. I had a question. I was wondering, do you get a sense from your research conducted each semester about what percentage of the food students on average tend to throw away?
That data it's ever skewing, and it really comes down to how accurate the data is going in. So when we have my frontline staff that is doing the measurements at the end, it's only good as the data that we're accumulating. So that's part of the training piece and the coaching piece that some of and now that we are fully our own employees, I know the last couple of years has been a challenge for us from a recruiting standpoint. This year we have had 0 agency temp labor in the dining hall or any of our locations on campus. So it's either been our normal union staff, our Aramark staff, or student base, which we have a large student population employed here. That being said, staying on top of them to make sure that that data is accurate so that we can dig into it. So that's been an ongoing challenge to make sure that what's going in is as accurate as possible.
Sounds like in the past you asked them to do it, but they didn't really consistently do it.
That is correct. Yes. So we're getting better about that. We're not perfect by any means, but we are getting much better about it and making sure that, because that also helps us into not overproducing, especially when it comes to the dining hall in those instances. So, but like, I'm not going to say that we're perfect. We can get better at that for sure.
No, the waste, is it sorted into compostable material and then non-compostable, such as bones, or does it all go into the food dehydrator? And what do you do with the waste from that food dehydrator?
It's all single use, single stream. So it's all going to the same place right now. And the dehydrator has been an ongoing challenge from day one. I know that we have not had a consistent ability to have that running as much as we'd like to. I know when we were first built the building, it is a one-of-a-kind system, and with that comes some challenges that whether it be the staff not handling the equipment correctly, or just the hard water issues that we've had on the dish machine and the pulper itself, and some valves that go. It hasn't been as consistent as we like, and we've had multiple repairs going in, so that data is not as great as we would hope it would be, with full transparency. But something that is, we continue to make the corrections and get it going, but we haven't had a sustainable, for lack of a better term, amount of time with the dehydrator and the pulper to be able to give us that data.
Okay, thanks. There is another machine we proposed when they were building the building, known as an anaerobic digester, that's actually energy positive. It recovers energy from the waste through basically biological breakdown of the waste and converts it to methane gas, which can be used to generate electricity. So if that machine, the dehydrator, eventually wanted a replacement, it could be an option.
Yeah, there's also one that is a water-based digester of sorts as well, and just basically flushes down wastewater cycle. That was something else that I had brought up when I first came to campus and saw the challenges we were having with it. So there's multiple different options. It comes down to cost, and it's not an easy fix because there's a lot of time and effort that's already been invested in it. So and we continue to put more time and effort into it. So we haven't given up on it, but it's yeah, I wish I had better news that I could report on that. It's been a challenge that I have taken over since coming onto campus here. And the team has been, going through the frustrations as well in terms of running that stuff. So, but I'd be interested to see what that piece is. I'm not familiar with that. I just know that there was a digester that was water-based that I mentioned that I had worked with at another location. And I know the similar one is called the Orca that I had also proposed in terms of a solution long-term if needed.
So I can send that over to you. I'll probably get your contact info from Brad. But thank you very much for that response. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, John.
Nick, we're at 12:50 and we often pause at this point because some folks have to get to a class at 1 o'clock. If you're able to stay and answer a few more questions, I know I have a few and maybe some of the others here do too. But for now, please join me in thanking Nick and Emily.
Happy Banana Day, everybody. Happy to hear your day.
Thank you.
Oh, if you need to go, please feel free to excuse yourself. I have a question or two, but I want to let others in the audience pose questions if they have them.
Yeah, I got a couple minutes. I do have to get back to, I have a 1:15, but won't take me 15 minutes to get over to the comments. So yeah, anybody from on the chat that has a question? No?
When looking at like the beef metric, are you doing any like meat blends, or is that something that you'd be interested in implementing? Like I know that sometimes people will have like turkey and beef burgers, that would lower the emissions.
It's a good question. I don't know if that's an alternative for some of our vendors. It's something that we can work, because we obviously don't make our own burgers for the dining hall because of the amount that we're going through. And it's not the spec for like B+F downstairs. But that's something that we can look into. I don't have an answer for that.
All of the products like 100% beef right now.
Yes. Not saying that with a whole lot of confidence in being in my face, but I believe so, yeah.
Yes.
Obviously we're talking like hot dogs and burgers and all that kind of stuff. Those are 100%. But I don't have to do some more research on that.
Because I know like there's like chicken hot dogs, like still that's one. Yeah.
Yeah, my personal taste on a pork hot dog. I leave that alone, but yeah, it's but yeah, we do have some of those alternatives on the menus. I know that we have some beyond products that we offer, especially at our vegan stations, our vegetarian stations. They're not as popular. So any of the alternatives, it's
Turkey burgers, he was saying that on the burger station, there was once turkey burgers, but they could not get rid of them, like students just did not.
it's rotated in. I think the turkey burgers are on the rotation once or twice a week. This is again, menu fatigue is something we try to solve for, because we're talking 16-week cycles of the same thing can be very bland. I always make this comment to my new managers: if you went to your favorite restaurant 21 times in a week, how tired of that would you be within 3 weeks? It may not even make it 3 weeks, depending on how big the menu is at that location. So that's one of the things we have to solve for, is how can we keep students engaged that are on a meal plan to keep coming back to see some of those things and not see them so frequently. So it's just, they have their, and I'm talking the greater number of them are gravitating towards those things that are, the higher emission producing things.
Yeah.
So even when we offer, and I actually did this case study when I was with Sodexo at Temple. We had a wrap station, and I overwhelmingly got complaints that we didn't have enough grilled chicken product, didn't go through grilled chicken. Well, sure enough, I was going through 500 pounds a week of popcorn chicken, which is a fried product. And it was a fraction of it was grilled, but we always had grilled chicken, we always had popcorn chicken, but the dichotomy between the numbers was mind-boggling. But it was still, you don't have enough grilled chicken, no, it's on the menu every day. Students are just choosing fried chicken, so.
That's why I'd be interested in the blend, because if we could replace 100% beef with 75% beef, even maybe cutting commission.
Yeah, and that's, that comes down to capabilities from a, supply chain standpoint. I don't even know if we have the ability to get that in. And then from a nutritional standpoint, the way that our menu system's set up, I don't know if we have that ability to be able to offer that as the alternative there. But where we can make tweaks, I want to make sure, obviously now we have the data, we can see how we can manipulate it so that we can get the end result that we need. So definitely something to look at.
Dr. Subak at one point did introduce us to a vendor that blends mushrooms with beef in a way that I'm told, people who prefer beef don't even taste that there's 25% mushroom. I didn't taste that, so I don't know.
Yeah, I've had it. I've had it. It's a Happy Valley Meats, I believe, is the vendor that does it. We've used them. We tested them when I was at St. Joe's, and it was students didn't gravitate to it.
Yeah.
But as an alternative, it's something to consider for sure.
I have a question about seasonality and whether a random student eating in the dining hall throughout the academic year would leave with a sense of what fruits and vegetables are really in season and more local throughout the year. I mean, much of the academic year is in the fall and the winter. So, you'd expect that they'd be eating more squashes and root vegetables and greens, things that can be fresh and local in the winter. Do students get a sense of that? Is that part of the way nutrition and
It's something to definitely focus on, because, you get feedback from students like, oh, it's winter and this cantaloupe is flavorless. Well,
It's a reason behind that. Yeah.
it's out of season. So now that I'm here, I'd love for that to be a piece of nutrition education with the students. That's
could you
actually
just decide not to offer cantaloupe that's traveling thousands of miles in the winter?
That's more of a culinary question, since they're the ones making the menu.
Yeah, and I will say that you can make these decisions and then you get pushback from students.
Yeah.
More often than not, they're asking why we can't see to that same point. Why do we have fresh berries in the middle of winter? Yeah, it's not easy to get them. But we try to accommodate that. And since Emily's new in role here, one of the things that we've done is, hey, we hear you're doing this, but check out over here. So we can kind of do that, like, and it's gonna sound weird to call it bait and switch, but kind of highlighting some of that stuff, which we do. Like in the fall, we do Apple Fest. It's one of the big things that I like to do every fall, and highlighting apples because it's so we can get them locally. We can do a lot of fun stuff with it. Banana Day isn't really technically in season right now, but we have a lot of banana based options in the dining hall. We're getting into the fresh berry season coming up, so we'll have like a strawberry fest of sorts. And one of the things we didn't even mention on here, we do a farmer's market. And we'll start to see some of those pop up on Shack's Way outside of the dining hall. But that's where we're trying to push some of those, like, when we're in the fall, gourds and sweet potatoes and some of those, squashes and stuff like that. So you'll see a lot more of those on our menus because they're easier for us to get. From a culinary side, every Friday we have a production call for the region. And part of that call is to call out what's in season. So it's going to cut down on some of our costs to be able to put it in the dining hall and we put some of that out there. And students are still going to say, like, I want cantaloupe in the middle of February. It's like, right. So
They
there
want
is a
it
need.
in the house to complain that it's not as flavorful.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I ask about this because I think it's an important lesson for anybody growing up in our society to have a keener sense of seasonality. And to link that to this issue of carbon emissions and impact on the natural environment. we are an educational institution and you're not, as Airmark, you know, teaching classes, but students do learn something by eating in the dining hall and eating downstairs in the food court. And I know you do some of that education, it's just, let's push it harder. It's part of sustainability.
100% agree with you, and that's part of. Yeah.
Is I mean, from students thinking about it like on a more face value, like, why does this taste so weird? Well, because it's out of season, and then you can kind of tie in the piece of, and you know, like when you eat it in season, lower carbon emissions and kind of pulling in the sustainability piece. So, yes, that's something I'm really excited to like kind of dive more into as I get more seasoned in this role and like educating students on this.
And some of the events that we did in the fall and even up to this point in the spring is we're doing that at tabling. We're doing that from some of the educational pieces that we're doing. And it's difficult to capture 14,000 students we have enrolled here. So, you know, every little bit we can.
Yeah.
And we have signage throughout, like we have the screens that have to display some of the stuff about the Cool Foods program and all that kind of stuff. But how much of that is resonating with students? It's just gonna be an ongoing ongoing messaging and ongoing, you know, what we can do moving forward is just do the best we can.
What about calorie counts? Is that available as you're like making your choices so that, you know, like if you were to offer, say, a blend burger, which would probably be lower calories than a full beef burger, people might gravitate because it's lower calories or at least try it.
Yeah, we have that, and that's one of the reasons why we can't just flip the switch to a different blend burger, because we have it all centrally located in our production system, so it already pushes all that information. So our calorie counts are available on Campus Dish, which is going to be changing over the summer to a different platform. But also what's displayed in the dining hall and what the retail brands are that we go through their menus. But from a national labeling standpoint, if we're serving, and correct me if I'm wrong, if we're serving a product more than one time, we have to have the calorie counts up. It's not as easy as making those tweaks to that if we're going like wholesale changes to you know, a burger blend of sorts, but having that as a messaging will help with it for sure. But then there's also going to be that pushback for, I want to see the 100% burger, you know, again, so the people that don't resonate with what our initiative we're trying to push forward. Having the best of both worlds is really what we need to offer, and that educational piece to be able to move forward, so.
We're at 1 o'clock, so we should let you.
Yeah, I do need to get back, so.
I will just say, Emily, the Sustainability Council does have a sustainable food systems committee.